Howdy folks, Troy with V-Twins to V8s coming on today to give you an instructional video on how to pick and file metal panels. The reason why we'd want to do that is to get our metal as straight and as smooth as possible before we do any priming or maybe any light body work. The more you prep the metal, the straighter that it is, the better your results will be in the long run and the less body work you have to do. The less filling, the less sanding, all that stuff. So basically, this would be the old school way that I was taught how to do this by my father, and it's just working the metal to make the metal straight before you start doing any finish work on top of it. So let's get to it. Alright, so what we're going to use to do this type of work is we have a few things that we need. We need a hammer with a pick end on the end of it. It looks like a little point. Some type of a dolly, which is basically just a steel, just basically a big hunk of metal that's formed in a certain way. This is a heel dolly, there's toe dollies, there's all kinds of different kind of dollies. I can give you some close-ups of them in another shot, show you what everything looks like. We're going to need a file. I like to use a half-round file and to also use a flat file. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to work on flattening this panel. I've already done the top section of this. So I've already taken my door and gotten it fitted to the body of the car so that my line at the front of the door where it meets the fender is all lined up really nicely, and then the same in the back. So you get it on there, you get it adjusted to width as much as you can. You want to make sure you have your weather strip in there. If you're doing a car over and you're going to replace the weather stripping, get a new weather strip, put it on the door, fit it to the car, so that when you're all done with your body work and you go and put that new weather strip on, it fits exactly like it did when you did your body work. Nothing worse than putting this whole thing all together and everything, and then when you go to put a new weather strip on, it doesn't fit the way that it should and you got to mess around with it. Don't do that. That's tip number one of today. So anyways, I'll bring the camera over. I'm going to show you the work that I've already done, and then we're going to do a little pick and filing. All right, folks, so here's our door. You can see it's all rough. It's all been ground with a grinder so as to get ready to do this process. Now, it's hard to see, but you can see where I kind of ran my file over this area. Because what I'm going to work on is I'm going to work on this body line right here. Let me show you what I already did. So over here, you can see how smooth and how linear my my marks are. That's because I filed this out. So you'll see some irregularities. You'll see some spots down here where it's kind of gouged a little bit. That'll be something that we'll work on when we get into sanding it and things of that nature. But basically, I've got this door done from the upper body line up. I'm pretty good. I'm going to work on this bottom section. I'm specifically going to work on this line here so that I know I got a nice straight body line right there before I get any further. Okay, so one of the things I'm going to do for us, so that for illustration purposes, to make it very easy for you to see with the camera, is I'm going to work this body line. I'm going to take a little bit of black spray paint and I'm going to dust it on this body line. That way there, when I file this, the high spots will be very discernible from the low spots. In other words, you'll see the metal and you'll see the black background. It'll really stand out. This is also kind of a tip or a trick you can use if you're first starting to do this. It makes it very easy for you to see where your highs and your lows are. So I'm just going to lay this on here kind of lightly. You know, I'm not really trying to paint this in. I'm just trying to put a little bit of contrast to it. So a couple of light coats, just enough so we can see what's going on. Okay, so while our guide coat is drying, there's a couple other things I like to use. I like to use a straight edge. 9 times out of 10, whatever panel you're trying to straighten out is probably going to be flat or needs to be flat, at least to a certain extent. All panels on cars seem to have a little bit of a roll to them, so you got to take it for what it's worth. But this will really show you your big highs and lows. You lay it on a panel, you look down in between, and you can see your highs and lows. Same thing this guide coat's going to show us. So I like to have one of these. I like to have my dolly handy. Of course, my half round file and my flat file and picking hammer. Okay, the other thing I like to do is I like to wear gloves. The reason why I wear these gloves is because the oils in your skin on this steel will create a residue that will in turn rust. Especially if you get sweaty, it's kind of a physical thing. You won't notice it right away, but you'll come back to your project and all the places where you pot all over it, there's going to be surface rust that you're going to have to get rid of. Save yourself the hassle, wear some gloves. It also saves you from any metal slivers you might get, or it just saves your hands. It's just the best way to go. So that's what we need. I'm pretty sure at this point our guide coat's dry. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our flat file and we're going to run it across here lightly, and we're going to see where our highs and lows are and what we need to do. So here we go. We have our black on here. We're going to give it a couple of minutes to dry, so that when we start filing it, we're not rolling it up. We're just going to scratch it, and then we'll start working this panel. All right, so I just got the camera on, and I'm just going to continually work this area. I am going to be in the way of the camera a couple of times here, but I'm going to feel it, tap it, and I'm going to file it. And you'll see how this is starting to get pretty nice and flat. Okay, so now I'm starting to work this out. I've got my basic look. I can kind of see where my really high spots are, my very low spots are, and then the little in-betweens. And then I'm just going to start working an area. Like, I got a pretty nice area right here where I have almost all steel, and I'm not seeing any darkness, but now my black is coming in down here. So I'm going to continue to file this area and see what happens more or less. So now I'm starting to see my high spot here, my low staying low. I'm starting to pick up a little edge of this door here. So what this is kind of telling me right now is, hopefully you can see this, is that the edge of my door right here is pretty close to this height. This area here is low. This area here is low. So I'm going to continue to work this until I can figure out what I need to do. So I'm starting to get it coming in here. One of the important things to do is, like, you don't want to just grind all this metal off. You just want to kind of keep working it. And then you get to this point here, you can also use your straight edge and take a look under there and see what you got going on. Now what I'm seeing here in between is I'm seeing this area as being a little bit high. So I'm going to take my hammer and I'm going to make really small tabs on it with this pointy end. And then I'm going to go back to my filing again. Now what that does is that's just going to lower my high spot, and now I'm going to start chasing this back. When I mean chasing it back, you'll notice as I file, my area back here, I'm starting to take that black off. That means I'm getting this down to this height. So I'm just going to continue to do that and continue to file. And I'm going to watch this. And as I start picking up more steel in that area, I'm going to keep going. I notice that I got a high spot back here too, and that this area in here is a little bit lower. I don't want to get into trying to pop that out, because it's just going to create a problem for us later. Now, as you can see, my area is getting smaller. So I'm going to continue to tap my edges, and I'm going to continue to file until I get this all gone, and then I'll move my way back. Well, as you can see, I'm starting to make some progress. I've got just a very, very small low spot here and a couple here. I'm okay with this right here for right now. So I'm going to continue to work this panel back. I can feel that this is really starting to come nice and smooth for me. So I'm going to continue to file. One of the things that's important about this is that you don't just file in one straight line. It seems like it would make sense, but just like when you sand filler, you want to kind of alter your patterns, kind of go a little crossways, maybe like this a little bit, like that, because you don't want to groove your panel in a certain way. And as you can see, as I'm doing this, I'm starting to see less and less and less of that black. So this area here, for me anyway, seems pretty good. I'm not going to really chase this area right here too much more, because I have what appears to be pretty much a high spot here. I'm going to move back here and go like this. And yeah, it is high. I can feel it anyway. And I'm going to tap this high spot down very lightly and continue to file. And as I do this, you'll notice that my exposed area is going to keep walking back. And I'm also starting to pick up some over here. So I'm going to tap this a little bit more. Notice how when I tap it, I'm very, very light with my tapping. And the reason is because I have that pick. All the weight of the hammer and my force is all down to that one little spot. You can see I'm starting to pick up the bottom of this body line here now. And I'm just going to continue on with this. I'm picking this up. This is starting to get smaller. This is just a continuous process. All right, so now as you can see, I'm continually working this back. This is now looking pretty darn good. I got a little bit of a low spot here. I've got this, which is pretty good. I got a little bit on the bottom. Now I have this spot and this spot. So the same thing I did over here, working my high area on both sides into my low area, is what I'm going to do here. So I'm going to knock this down just a little bit, and I'm going to continue to work this area back into this other area. Now I can feel it, that it feels, to me it feels pretty high right in here. So I'm just going to tap this a little bit. Little bit is the key. You can always hit it again, but if you hit it too hard and you create a big low spot, now you got to go from the back side. You don't even want to go there. So I'm just going to continually. See, now I'm starting to pick up even the center. I can still feel that this is a little high, so I'm going to stop work. This side over here, I was just kind of doing this to create a blending into this, because I've got all of this kind of like at the same height. So I want to taper that back into this. This is really my culprit, because I'm working back. So I'm going to tap this down. I'm going to work this up into this other one. As you can see, my upper body line's starting to look pretty good. So there we go. So look at now my top part is looking really good. My bottom's actually not too bad. I'm just going to keep at this, just like this. Probably going to have to knock this down in here. I can see the high spot where my file hits it. Probably it's hard to see on the camera, but you'll be able to see it because it'll be like, you'll be able to see the abrasion from the file. Now, with every time that I tap it, my flat area is expanding and my low area is contracting. I'm just going to keep on working that process and keep working it back. Basically what I have is I have basically all just the exposed steel. I have a couple of small low spots that I'm really not going to chase out. I can either kind of let that go with my primer surfacer, or if I feel the need, I could always put a little glazing putty on there, but at this point that's looking pretty good. So if you notice, I basically work this body line on this side. So all I did was file along this edge. Now I want to define this body line and make sure that I don't have any low spots in here, which I can see I do. So my next start of the process is going to be to file this area here, and I'm going to continue to file this top to define my body line and continue to work up the door. Alright, so now I'm going to work this top edge of this body line, and I'm going to do the same thing here as I did on the bottom, but I'm really, right now, I'm kind of focusing on this line. I want to make sure I don't have any dents or ripples or anything in the line. But one of the things that you'll notice as I file this is that I have a pretty consistent spot of the black. And that's because my file is flat on this side, and so the file is flat this way, my file's flat that way, and my body line is rounded. So I should have a little bit of a gray area in there. It's just a matter of I don't want too much of it. So as I sand this, you can kind of see how it defines that body line. Now what I've noticed is I have a bit of a low spot back here. I'm going to chase that out in a minute. But I got this going pretty good. Now I don't really want to mess with my my body lines on my edges because I already fitted it to the car, so I'm going to work within the panel. And just continually work this out. So as you can see, I'm working my panel from the bottom up. I'm going to continue to work this body line, and I'm going to do the same thing I did down here, up here, and just keep going. I'm all filed out up to this, from this body line up, I've already done. So now I've done the bottom. Now I'm just going to do the centerpiece. So I'm going to work this center out, and as I do it, I'll come on and I'll keep clipping the video together so you can see how it comes together. Okay, so let's talk about the this half round file that I have here. And I'll bring it over to the camera so that you can kind of see it. It's kind of, if you look at the profile, it's got like a half round to it. And the idea with this is, obviously, you can use it in an area where, you want to fit it in there. But the other thing that I really like about it is that when I use it, I can use it on a flat surface. And because of it being round, it expels all the filings out from between the file and the panel. When you use the flat file, you file a little bit and then you got to clear the panel a little bit. I'll make a little demonstration here. So like if I'm filing this, I'm going to go along like this. I'm going to be filing along, and what I'm going to notice is all of a sudden I can feel the metal filings between my file and the panel. So I got to take a second, brush it off, and then I can go back at it. Now, if I have my round file, I can take my file and I can work it all different ways. Like I explained, you want to make sure that you're filing in many different angles so you're not filing a groove into the panel. But what this does is it allows me to move around much easier, and then the filings aren't trapped between the file and the panel. It expels them as I'm going, and I can kind of focus on a specific area. So as I go along, I'm filing back and forth, it's spitting my filings out, And I can just kind of keep going and just keep doing this. You can get long passes at it, like this. I can come across like this. I can make swapping motions like this, and from the other way, like that. These are all different ways to make sure that your panel is flat in all directions. So I just wanted to come on and show you that. I'm going to continue to work this panel. I'm back to, I've got a good path up here is good. I'm about up to here on this front section. I've worked from this body line down to about here. So I got a little bit of the middle of the door, and then I'm going to work the back third, and then I can, you know, kind of show you what I got going on. I have a little bit of a low spot in the back. We're going to see what we can do with it. Alright, so I've got my panel worked out, and what I've got going on is I have all of this bottom pretty much all set. All this right along here is all good. As I said before, my top was already pretty much taken care of. I have this low spot that goes from the frame of the door right in here. It's like this elliptical shape right in here. And what I did was I set my straight edge on here, and I can look underneath that edge and I can see what I'm dealing with. A lot of times I'll use the straight edge and to look at it to see how low it is, see how hard I have to hit it, see if I even want to deal with it. Maybe I just want to put a skim coat of glazing putty or whatever in there, because you have to realize that if you look at this area here, I mean, my file is skimming some of this dusted on paint off of this panel. So we're not talking about something that's really deep. I mean, I literally, I don't know, it's not even a 32nd of an inch. But I would like to just kind of tap that a little bit. I got a little tiny ding right here. I would like to work out of it. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to flip this door over. I'm going to go in from the back side, and I'm going to tap this a little bit. And I'm going to see if I can work it out just some, and then file it and see what I got. Alright folks, so I got my whole panel all picked and filed out. I had to really get after this little edge over here. I used the stud gun and some pick bars and got it out pretty good, but there's a big reinforcement beam that goes through the door, so access on the inside is extremely minimal. But I got it out pretty good. I mean, there's a very, very small amount of a low spot here. I'll bring the camera over and show you. So here's our low spot that we have right here. I mean, it's really not all that bad. Got a couple of little, you know, divots in it. Like I said before, if I use my straight edge here, you can see, I mean, we're talking just a whisker here and there. You know, we're right up against it. So it's just a small low spot that's right in behind the reinforcement bar. The rest of this looks really good. Nice and flat, nice and smooth. I got a good edge here where it comes up against the door. I worked this area here a little bit. This was just a whisker low. Took care of that, but the rest of it looks great. This is the top part. I did this stuff when it was on the car. And yeah, so we're just about there. Alright folks, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this entire panel and I'm just going to feather it down and smooth it off with some 36 on the DA. Alright folks, so I took the liberty of running over this entire panel with some 36 on the DA to clean it up, take off any rough edges that I have around the sides, and I got a nice clean panel here, and I am ready to get it on the car, make sure everything fits right, move on to my other panels, and then I can come back. You can see a couple little depressions here. This is where I have a few low spots that I can't really chase out. I'll probably have to put a little bit of filler there. Other than that, you can see the rest of the panel looks pretty darn good. So basically, if you pick and file, you can save yourself a lot of body work, a lot of materials, a lot of sandpaper. It's just some time and work. What you may want to look at is, I'll put a link to it at the end of the video, but I have another video on picking and filing, but this is for stainless steel trim. So if you have stainless steel trim on your car, you can't buy it, or you don't want to, you just want to fix it, I have a whole video on how you can, how I teach you how to pick and file that, and then sand it and polish it and get it right back to new. So thanks for tuning into the video. Please like my video and subscribe. Let me know any comments that you have. If you want to see me do a video on something, you like my videos, you don't like my videos, whatever it may be, please let me know. And if you have some methods that I'm not using that you'd like to share with me or anybody else that tunes in, also add it to the comments. Thanks a lot. My name's Troy Kane. I'm with vtwins2v8s.com, and thanks for tuning in.